Well, it's time now for 4CRB's Law and You program, and that means it's a very good morning to John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Colin. How are you today?
Very well. How about you?
Yeah, well indeed, thank you, and a very good morning to all of our listeners out there this morning. As Colin said, this is the Law and You for the next half hour right here on 4CRB, and with the reticence of people to get out and about, it's your opportunity to get some free legal advice at home. All you need to do is get on that telephone as soon as you can. 55208888 is our number. That number again, 55208888. Don't forget that we do have an email address if you wish to use it for next week's program, talkback@4crb.com. That's talkback@4crb.com. If you're south of the Tweed River, don't forget you need to put 07 in front of our telephone number. And thank you to all the people who called in last week. Certainly an interesting program. Many and varied issues raised in the course of the program, and that's, of course, what we always like to see. I was wanting to talk about a few things last week that we didn't really get an opportunity to get to, but it basically arose out of the comments that have been a lot of comment in the press in recent times about the increase in domestic violence as a result of the coronavirus and people needing to leave their home. And it just prompted me to realise and to remind you that if there is a breakdown in a relationship, you certainly need to consider such things as your will, your enduring power of attorney, and also particularly your superannuation, because you very well may have a binding death benefit nomination which says your super goes to your spouse, or alternatively, it may simply be that because you're still married, and you don't have any nomination, that your spouse will automatically be considered in relation to your super. So just a reminder that you should really take a look at all of those issues if there has been a breakdown in your relationship, or if you've got a child who might be suffering stress in their marriage as a result of the current circumstances within which we find ourselves at the present time. Don't also forget that if you are in a second marriage or a second relationship, it is also wise to think about how you might hold assets, particularly if you want to preserve those assets for the respective families. These days we quite often see couples coming in to do their estate planning, and they both have children of previous marriages but don't have any children of their relationship. And as such, they're wanting to preserve their assets for the benefit of their children of their prior marriage on their death, but completely overlook the fact that how they may hold assets with their new partner is very, very important. For example, if you buy a home with your new partner and you purchase it as joint tenants, then you can't leave your half of the house to your children under your will, because if the property is owned as joint tenants, it will automatically devolve on the surviving joint owner of the property, regardless of what your will says. So that's just something to bear in mind there. How are we going there, Colin? Do we have any calls at present?
We do. We have an early caller, and I will introduce you to Mary.
Good morning, Mary. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for possibly you can help me out. This
I
is
hope so.
Something that happened in Melbourne, but possibly that could be for anywhere, any state in Australia. Mm-hmm. My daughter lives at Surfers Paradise, so do I. She was visiting her daughter in Melbourne about 3-4 months ago. And as she was leaving, before she got out of the front door, before the owner of the house, her daughter, could put the light on for the porch, she didn't realize there was a step from the front door on the porch to the ground floor. She fell and broke her hips and going through 2 operations with hips, blah, blah, blah. The question is this, and that is it only in Victoria or in Gold Coast? Are you always right away take liability risk? This is the question, please. Liability risk. You insure the contents, God knows for how many, and you would only have 1/10 of that value to get in case of an accident by a visitor. That you could take $1 million if it gets things to worse. What is the situation in Melbourne, please?
Well, Mary, first of all, the property that your daughter was visiting to see her daughter, was that a property that your granddaughter was renting? Or
No,
property...
Her resident.
So your granddaughter owns the home that her mother was
and her
visiting.
husband owned the house.
Okay, and your daughter fell as she was walking out before the light was put on. Okay,
correct.
Well, look, these matters all depend on the circumstances, Mary, but basically anyone who owns a home should always ensure that they have public liability insurance in place so that anyone visiting their home is covered in the event of an accident such as that which you describe. And that's not just confined, that would be the same in virtually every state in Australia. Now,
that's
obviously,
the question, and you answered it. Thank you. And?
It's up to people whether they decide whether they will take out public risk insurance. But as you pointed out in your comments, if you have your public risk insurance may either be covered in your householder's insurance, which covers your house, or alternatively, it may be covered in your contents insurance. So you can take public risk insurance in either of those forms. So if your granddaughter had the property insured for householders insurance and or public risk insurance, and or contents insurance, then it would be highly likely that she had public liability insurance, and so your daughter would probably need to consult a solicitor who specialises in the area of personal injuries and lodge a claim in relation to that, which would basically be taken up by the insurer of your granddaughter and the property down in Melbourne.
My granddaughter is surprised because definitely my daughter feels guilty, but she's in so chronic pain, 2 hips operation. She's only size 6, so she's a small person. And she wouldn't want to, but now she's taking 20,000 every day injection for the chronic pain. So
yes, well, she definitely needs to look at it.
Is there when somebody say, hold on, is this for life? I'm stuck with this. Family doesn't want
to. But does your granddaughter have insurance?
Yes, she has.
Okay,
and
well, your daughter should be making a claim.
And
all right.
Okay, she should make a claim, and I wasn't sure because it happened outside the main door. I was said, have we got a problem here? Because it was outside the main door. It was, on the porch going sort of on the ground to walk to the driveway.
Okay,
so
but it was a house. It was a house, not a home unit, Mary. Is that right? It's not a home unit.
It's a house. Nice.
No,
house.
If the accident occurred on the property, be it inside the house or stepping out onto the porch, then that would be covered by the householder's insurance. All right.
Thank you, Everett. And what period is there to put a claim? Because first you think you're going to be all right in 2-3 months' time.
Mary, I can't tell you off the top of my head because I'm not an expert in the area of public liability insurance or personal injuries, but there are strict limitations in relation to the time frames for these claims. So I would be recommending that your daughter contact the Queensland Law Society for a referral to a lawyer that specialises in this area and who would be able to provide appropriate advice to her straight away.
Thank you. You're very helpful, like always. Have a good day.
No trouble. Do you want the number for the Law Society?
She's gone, John, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. No trouble at all, Colin.
We've got Renee on the line for you now, John.
Very good morning, Renee. How are you today?
Hello?
Hello, Renee. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. How are you, John?
How can I help you today, Renee?
Just two quick questions. I made a will just before my husband died 10 years ago, right, in Queensland. I've moved to Tweed since. Is it still valid?
10 years ago, was it?
Yep.
Right.
Is it still valid? Even though
yes,
I've moved state? It is.
So
Okay.
moving into state doesn't affect the validity. The only thing I would recommend you do is look at your will and just make sure that it provides what's to happen to your estate in the event that your husband predeceased you. But most wills will simply say, I leave everything to my husband, but if he fails to survive me, then I leave it all to our kids or something like that.
Yeah, it's virtually what it is. But the second question was, I've gone into an over-50s village, sold the house, but it's still sort of 50-50 to the kids when I go.
Yeah.
So is that still okay or not?
So you've got two children by the sound of it, if you're splitting it 50-50?
Yeah.
Okay. No, the fact that you've gone into an over-50s village doesn't matter. Presumably your will simply says, I leave my estate to such of my children as survive me, and if more than one in equal shares or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever you've got when you pass away, Renee, be it $1 million or $10, that will leaves it equally to your two children.
Correct. So that's still okay. So
all fine.
Yep. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much for your help.
No trouble at all, Renee. A pleasure. Time on 4CRB is 17 minutes past 9. The Law and You is the program, 55208888, the phone number. If you have a question or a query this morning, 55208888. Any other callers there, Cole?
We do, John, and I'll introduce you to Jeff.
Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good, thank you.
That's good. Is it Jeff with a G or Jeff with a J?
Jeff with a G. Sounds the same over the phone.
It certainly does.
Yeah, just a quick question, John. We live in a body corporate situation. There's about 2 kilometres of roads here. The roads are very wide, so there's no issue with cars being on the road. But having said that, one side of the road, there's no parking anyway. But the body corporate has been bringing in rules that saying there's only 3-hour parking and then cars will be fined, etc., and possibly towed away. But we have a situation where we have 3 vehicles, and normally everyone parks in front of their driveway if they have extra vehicles in front of their garage. But we can't do that because of the way our building is built. We block our neighbours in, which we're not going to do that. So we're forced to leave a car on the road. There's only a few cars there overnight anyway. But I do move it around, and I try and I've explained to all the neighbours that why my car is on the road, and if it's outside the house, that what the issue is. But we're just wondering. And I've spoken to them, and they said, look, no, that's the rules, and you'll have to park off-site. Now, off-site parking for us is about 1.6 kilometres away. Now, we're in our early 70s, so, I mean, even if we weren't, it's that's just crazy. So I was just wondering if there's anything I can do. I've written to them, and they said, no, that's what you got to do. It's your problem. And they have changed the rules since we've lived here, so I was just wondering what we can do. Can they fine the car? Can they tow it away, etc.? And is there anything that we can do, please?
Well, theoretically, provided the bylaw has been passed correctly, then they may be able to do that. But what I would suggest you do is the body corporate looked after by a body corporate management company, or is it looked after on the site by the owner?
Yeah, there's nine body corporates here. There's a principal body corporate, then there's a body corporate management company, an external company that looks after it. Yeah.
Right, and there are no other parking spaces for resident cars.
No, there's parking for visitor parking, but there's plenty of parking on the street, and as I said, the street's very wide. If you park 2 cars opposite one another, you've still got room for cars to go in the middle, but there's only parking on one side of the road.
Right, okay, and they've now said that that's limited to 3 hour parking.
Well, they're not worried. Yeah, they've perhaps put signs up they've got an independent company, but they said it's all off at the moment with the COVID thing, but they're going to come down heavy after, I've been told. So.
Right. Well, look, what I would suggest you do in relation to it, Jeff, is do you have the documentation from the body corporate, such as the bylaw and the minutes of the meeting where that was all
there's no parking? I've looked up the bylaws and said there's no parking on the street, and there's allocated visitor parking. But even visitors, if they're staying for a few days, have to get a special pass to say that they can stay here.
Right. Okay. So you've got all that documentation?
Yeah, I've looked up the bylaws. There's 100-odd pages, but I've looked it all up. Yeah, and there's only a few lines related to parking.
Whereabouts on the Gold Coast? Which suburb of the Gold Coast do you live?
We're in Carrara.
Carrara. Okay. What I would suggest you do is consider going down to the advice, independent free legal advice service that's run down at Robina on a Thursday evening, because you can take all the documentation in. It's very difficult for me to give you advice in relation to it without seeing the bylaws and all that sort of thing, the minutes, etc. But if you go and see, it's called My Community Legal.
Community Legal?
Previously known as yes, that's right, My Community Legal. It was previously called the Robina Community Legal Centre. Now, it operates from 6:30 to 8:30 on a Thursday evening down at the Gold Coast City Council Robina Community Centre.
Gold Coast City Council Community Centre.
At Robina.
Oh, yeah, that's near Robina Shopping Centre.
That's it. It's where the library is. So the Robina Library, and there's the community hall there. So they're there on a Thursday evening from 6:30 to 8:30. You don't make appointments, you just go in. They might be a little bit restricted at the moment because of the COVID thing, but I can give you a phone number to ring and just check and make sure that it's all okay.
Yeah.
So their number is 0423
0423
466 286.
286. Okay.
Yeah, so take it down to them and let them have a look. The reason why I would suggest you do that is because the Office of the Body Corporate Commissioner and QCAT have recently determined that some bylaws of body corporates, for example, a bylaw that says you can't keep pets, are invalid. And so you need to look at the way it was passed in the first case to see whether it was validly done or not, and then secondly, whether in all the circumstances it might be considered a reasonable bylaw or not. All right, then?
Okay, like the bylaws is 100-odd page, but there's only a few lines relating to parking, so I'll take
that's why it would be very easy for you to show that to someone there, and they very well may refer you on to the Body Corporate Commissioner's office.
Okay.
To speak to them. All right, then?
Thanks very much, John.
Okay,
all the best.
Jeff.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, and you too. And the time on 4CRB just continues marching along, 24 minutes past 9. Any further callers there, Cole?
We do have. I'll introduce you to Louise.
And, Cole, is there anyone after Louise?
No, there isn't, John.
Excellent. Okay, good morning, Louise. How are you today?
Good morning, John. Yes.
How can I help you today?
I just wanted to ask, I got a friend, she's been in hospital, she's not very well, but she hasn't got a will. She hasn't got a will. So do you do wills?
Yes, we certainly do.
You do?
Yeah.
So because I listen to you every Tuesday, or, when I have got the opportunity. So I wonder if I could bring her to you, and then you could make a will for her.
Yes, well, look, certainly I'd be more than happy to do that, Louise. Is she out of hospital now?
Oh, yes, she's home. Yeah.
All right, okay. And is she well enough to travel?
She will. I will pick her up, but I will talk to her. And if I just can get your phone number and where I can find you, and then we would make an appointment with you.
All right, okay. Have you got a pen there?
Yes.
I'll just give you the phone number. So it's 5597 3366.
Yep.
And if you ring that number, they'll be able to give you all the details in relation to our address and everything else to save you worrying about writing that down at the moment.
Lovely.
All right, then?
Thank you very much, John.
Okay,
Thank
Louise,
you.
and all the very best to your friend for a continued recovery.
You. Yeah.
Bye now.
Thanks.
And that looks like that's the calls for the day, Colt.
It is. Very busy day.
I've just got a few things that I wanted to remind people about. You may remember that a week or so ago I was mentioning about the concerns that have been expressed about drawing money out of your superannuation to get through the current environment, and this is particularly for younger people, so perhaps aimed at the children or grandchildren of many of our listeners. But it was interesting to hear that there's been an extension on that, and that sort of taps into another issue that I was raising in recent times too, and that is email scams that are being sent around. And I was interested to hear, or rather disappointed to hear on the news recently, that there have been international crime syndicates who have been targeting people who are applying to get money out of superannuation. And as a result of that, there have been quite a large number of people who have been scammed out of the money that they have withdrawn from their superannuation, presumably through the interception of emails and redirection of monies to be paid into bank accounts that aren't the appropriate bank account. So again, just a reminder to you to be on heightened alert, and if you happen to be speaking to your children, to make sure that they're on heightened alert in relation to email scams at the present time. Sometimes those emails are absolutely ridiculous, and it's so obvious that they are a scam. I'll just quickly read you one that I received a little while back, and I'll leave out the name, but it said, attention beneficiary. So I thought, well, that's a really good indication that this is coming from someone who's got no idea who I am. I am Mr. So-and-so, the newly appointed head of operations of this particular bank in Bangkok, Thailand. I was promoted to this exalted position some 3 months with a capital M ago. Following the ongoing debt settlement program by this bank, in my position as the overall head, HEABS, and with a small h, of operations, I requested all the directors, etc., etc. Just reading the first few lines of that email make it abundantly clear, if you needed nothing else, that this is an absolute scam. And this email went on for over a page and a quarter of A4, trying to induce me to provide bank account details, saying that they were going to release 50% of the money owing to someone else, and their massive sums of money they talk about. And, of course, it's just so ridiculous. It beggars belief that anyone could even think that there's a shred of truth to any of this. But amazingly, these emails do persist in our community, and sadly people do get sucked into them. So, for goodness sake, unless you know who the email is from, and it's someone that you know would reasonably be emailing you and you can confirm in some other way, don't even respond to them. The best thing is to click delete. No more calls there, Colin?
None at all, John.
Okay, well, we're just about coming up to the local news.
We are indeed.
I'm John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group. It's been great to be with you again for another program of The Law and You. I look forward to being back with you again, of course, next Tuesday. But as always, thanks to you, Colin, for the console operation today and for keeping the calls coming. And until next week, it's goodbye and God bless.